So, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to look at probably what I consider one of the most underrated members of the Hockey Hall of Fame. Now, it's hard to believe a Hockey Hall of Fame member would be considered underrated, but he was such a money player and such a driving force for the Edmonton Oilers, multiple cups in the 1980s era. Glenn Anderson can be nothing but a money player for all the fans and what do you call colleagues of this great NHL player. Now, Glenn Anderson was inducted in the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2008, and he's considered part of the Big Five of the Edmonton Oilers era, which includes, of course, not only Anderson, Gretzky, Messier, Curry, and Coffey. I don't think Edmonton would have won those cups, especially in '84, the first one against the Islanders, and also later on with these big goals in the playoffs if Anderson wasn't in the lineup. Now Anderson was basically uh, I don't know how you describe him. Sort of like half Steve Shutt and half Connor McDavid. Good playmaker, good scorer, deceptively large, and he was a right winger, 6'1", 125 pounds, and to play 18 seasons as a pro at such a level of success, coming off early years with the Team Canada program, we played under pressure, especially in the 1980 Olympics at Lake Placid. Now, besides Edmonton, he played with Toronto, New York, and St. Louis. And according to the media, us in the media, he had a extreme knack for stepping up in big games. His five playoff overtime goals ranked third in NHL history. While, get this, ladies and gentlemen, he had 17 playoff game-winning goals, making him fifth all time. Now, during the playoffs, he had 93 goals, 121 assists, and 214 points, respectively the fourth, ninth, and fourth most in NHL history. He's also the career leader for the Oilers in regular season game-winning goals, more than Gretzky with 72. Now, in his early years, he really looked towards the European aspects of the game to motivate his career. Maybe that's why he dived quite a bit as well. Um, he really enjoyed playing in international tournaments more than many of his NHL counterparts. When he was drafted by the Oilers in '79, he chose to play for Team Canada at the '80 Winter Olympics, and he also won gold at the '84 and '87 Canada Cups, and won a silver medal at the '89 World Hockey Championships. During his career, Anderson was part of six Stanley Cup winning teams, five with the Oilers and one, of course, with the Rangers in '94. And he skated in four All-Star games. And he's only seven Oiler players to have won all five cups in franchise history. Um, his number 9 jersey was retired by the Oilers on January 18th, 2009. Now, a BC native, born in Vancouver but raised in Burnaby, and his father Magnus is a son of a Norwegian immigrant. His mother Anne is Ukrainian. Um, as a young child, Anderson was not a big fan of hockey. Actually, his first goal was an own goal in his own net. But however, he grew older and developed his skills. His love of the game increased over time. And as a youth, he and teammate, future NHLer Ken Berry, played in the infamous Quebec International Hockey Pee Wee Hockey Tournament, which drew a lot of top skaters in 1972 with a team for Burnaby. Now, actually, it was kind of bizarre. I think that's why he loved international play so much. He said in media reports his favorite player growing up was not Canadian, but was Alexander Yakashev of the Russian team, who he had watched play during the '72 Summit Series. He also eventually produced a one-hour documentary, To Russia with Love, released in September 2012, which talked about the way the USSR changed the Canadian ice hockey game. Now, Anderson got his junior hockey start in the very, very talented BC Junior Hockey League, or BCHL, with the Bellingham Blazers during the '78 season. In 64 games there, he scored 62 goals, counted 69 assists for 131 points, which gave him eight most points in the league that year. He was also named to the league's second team All-Star. Now, in '79, he was recruited to play for the ice hockey team at the University of Denver in the NCAA by former NHLer Marcel Johnson. And in 41 games that year, he led the team in points with 55. Now, the entry draft in '79, a very big draft, of course. He was drafted 69th overall, and playing for Team Canada, he helped our squad to a top six performance, where a lot of people felt that Canada was a medal contender, but of course, he couldn't beat the Russians in the preliminaries, and he also had trouble with the Czechs. Now, Father David Bauer was the coach of that team, and that squad was a mix of old Father Bauer alumni with some of the new players. And Anderson said later on, playing with Team Canada gave him initiation of greater success playing the team game. And Anderson, the team came first with Anderson. He would always basically give 100% of the ice, and his skills were, tremendous. Now, because the Canadian national team program was discontinued in the fall of '80, where NHL pros were being used for the World Championships, he was given a choice of whether to join the University of Denver or join the Oilers, but he decided to go with Edmonton in that season. Big rookie year, 30 goals, 23 assists, and 53 points in 58 games. And those young Oilers had a great year, beating the Habs in a three-game sweep in the playoffs, and probably one of the biggest upsets against the Montreal Canadiens ever. He moved on to the quarterfinals and eventually lost to the Stanley Cup champions New York Islanders. But in that playoff run, he showed his mettle as a money performer, scoring 12 points in 9 games. And later on, when he started his second sophomore year, he recorded career highs in both assists and points with 67 and 105. They also won the Smythe division that year for the first time. But of course, that year, they lost to the LA Kings in the infamous upset, probably one of the biggest upset against the Oilers ever. And we knew a dynasty was building in Edmonton because with Gretzky again, Messi, Anderson, Curry, Coffey, and the other young players, Dave Lumley, Semenko, Fogle, and everybody else, Fuhr, Moog. Now, the following season, Anderson scored 48 goals and 58 assists for 104 points, and they did advance to the finals for the first time in franchise history, but lost to the Islanders. Now, Anderson had a really weird playoff because he was getting under Billy Smith's skin a little bit, and Smith and Anderson had feuded all the way through the finals. Now, but Anderson said in published reports later on, losing to the Islanders gave him enough incentive to what they need to make it to the finals and win it. And next year, of course, they did it. And in 1984, a big year for Anderson. He had 17 points in the playoffs in Edmonton's first Stanley Cup run, bet the Islanders in the final. And 85, he probably signed one of the biggest contracts in Oiler history, an 8-year deal with the Oilers, and he again it paid off that year. He had 42 goals and 81 assists in the divisional victory for Edmonton. Won the cup that year, beating Flyers in 5 games. And in the playoff run, he had 16 assists. And but again, 85-86, a loss to Calgary. His numbers were still there: 54 goals and 48 assists for under 2 points. And he was showing consistency. Kind of, he wasn't playing on Gretzky's line most times. He was a digger. He was a short shooter near the net. And let me tell you, when Steve Smith made a mistake in '86 that eventually led to Edmonton losing the cup because he couldn't advance by Calgary, Anderson said, "Listen, boys, let's suck it up. Let's make it up to Steve Smith, and let's do it in the next 2 years, of course, when he won the cup." And later on in 1990, after Calgary had success in '89, everybody felt that the dynasty was pretty well solid. Now, for his time with the Oilers, he scored 417 goals, 489 assists for 906 points, ranking him third, fourth, and fourth respectively in franchise history. and he had 183 playoff points for the squad. Now, after disappointing season for Anderson in 1990, where of course they won the cup, Anderson rebounded the playoffs, scoring 22 points and becoming one of only 7 players to be part of the entire Oilers dynasty. Now, after 1990, the ownership wanted to rebuild the team, and in 91-92 they made a blockbuster trade with Toronto that included 7 players. Now, Anderson, along with Grant Fuhr and Craig Berube, were sent to Toronto in exchange for Scott Thornton, Vincent Damphousse, Luke Richardson, Peter Ing, and future considerations. Now, he spent 2.5 seasons with Toronto. His statistics are down, but he recorded 2 consecutive 20 goal season. But later on, he ended up with the Rangers in their playoff run, and tremendously successful as well. Keenan, the trader Keenan, brought in Messier, quite a few other players besides Anderson, and he eventually outlasted Vancouver in the finals. And Anderson was a big part of that 94 Cup. 95, he ended up in St. Louis, but after then, he went back to the international program after some play in Europe in 95 and 96, putting in some consistent numbers. Went back to Edmonton in 96, split time with them, went back to Europe for a few more seasons, and also did some time in basically the elite leagues in Europe. Now, overall, didn't score 500 goals, which is kind of bizarre. Had every opportunity to it. In 1,129 games, he had 498 goals, 601 assists, and 1,099 points. And of course, it was 214 points in the playoffs, almost a point a game clip. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, he excelled with Team Canada, excelled with Edmonton and Toronto, big with the Canadian teams. His dives were classic in relation to drawing penalties. He was a complete player. He could play defense, play offense, good on the bench, good in the dressing room, good at motivating the other players. But I wouldn't say he's a type of guy you could describe his style of play. But every time he was on the ice, there was a possibility to score. It was, like I said, a little bit of Steve Sharp, a little bit of Connor McDavid. It can be like Gretzky sometimes too. But he had a smooth way of passing with like the Bobby Orr and Paul Coffey style. So tremendous overall player. So if you go on YouTube, there's a lot of Anderson tapes up there, no pun intended. Great movie, by the way, that show his basic style. But if you give Anderson a chance to score or to set up a play, he was going to put the puck in the net. And to basically be as successful as he was for such a long time, at such a high level, and playing right wing, it's not the easiest position in the world. So I mean, he, like I said, tremendous talent. Now, after hockey, he does a lot with the Edmonton Oilers alumni. He can be seen in various NHL alumni games, and he's been kind of, not say the forgotten guy with the Edmonton Oilers, but when people say Gretzky, Curry, Coffey, Anderson was up there. Messier once said to Madison Square Garden announcer, said getting Glenn Anderson is the last piece of the puzzle we needed to win, and he was right. Glenn Anderson had the respect of everybody. Again, a diver, but so was Bill Barber, and look how many cups he won. Sometimes you got to draw the penalty. That's what hockey's all about. It's not cheating if you don't get caught. So on this COVID Friday, again, a beautiful day in New Brunswick. Hope everybody remaining safe. Just remember, ladies and gentlemen, a whole bunch of protest rallies for human rights across New Brunswick for the next few days. We're hoping the situation in the States continues to rectify itself. We can only hope. But this podcast is a celebration of somebody that played for a team that brought a lot of joy to the fans. 2 teams, actually. I don't think the St. Louis Blues were bringing a lot of joy back in the day, but that's another story altogether. But he played in Toronto and in Edmonton. Anderson was the player to watch, and people loved him in Edmonton. It was a love affair between him and the older fans. Will never go away. You say Glenn Anderson, you hold up your hand and say, listen, 6 rings. Impressive. So have a good day. Take care.